Hello everyone, my name is Taro Yoshida from Japan. This is my second time to participate in this event. Until recently, I have been working as a local government officer tasked to promote urban agriculture and organic farming. Since retiring this March, I have been working as a freelance writer. Today, I would like to share with you some examples of important initiative from Japan. As I mentioned last year, our government has launched an aggressive plan to convert 25% of cultivated land in Japan to organic farming. And this radical plan was recently passed to become a law, which has gone into effect this July. Why has the Japanese government initiated such a measure to change? We find that behind this rapid legislative change is the war in Ukraine and China's reduction of fertilizer export, which has caused food and fertilizer price to skyrocket. With a food self-sufficiency rate of only 38% in Japan and Tokyo at 0.49%. I think there is a great risk of a food crisis. One of my mentors at the University of Tokyo, Professor Nobuhiro Suzuki, says food crisis has actually already begun. Why are fertilizer price going up in the first place? I want to briefly comment on this issue. Phosphorus fertilizer is made of fossilized guano, but it is a limited resource, and there are only a few places in the world where it can be mined: the United States, China, Russia, and Morocco. Modern agriculture has been mining these resources to make chemical fertilizer at a rate of 4% a year, and this has been assumed that the resource will peak in 2030 or 40s. And will be difficult to obtain thereafter. We are quickly nearing that period. Productivity of the traditional farming without chemical fertilizer was low. For example, the famous French artist Miret's picture here is a symbol of this poverty. If you sow 1 grain of wheat, you can get only 3 grains in return. The graph above shows how much wheat yield have increased in England with modern agriculture using chemical fertilizer. Based on this data, Professor Emeritus Barclay-Sumil of the University of Manitoba, Canada, has been warning us that the current population could not be fed without chemical fertilizer. This means that cities and civilization itself fundamentally unsustainable. Furthermore, in his book, That, the Erosion of the Civilization, Professor David Montgomery at the University of Washington warns that civilization will perish if soil is lost by erosion at current rate. To prevent this, the solutions that he proposed are no-till, organic, and urban agriculture. So there are solutions to the crisis of civilization and cities. Today, I would like to introduce 3 solutions, focusing on fertilizer and food. And finally, I would like to introduce one important concept of One Health and my ideas on how I would like the future of cities to be. Last year, I spoke about food waste as a great cause of global warming. To avoid this, France and Italy require people to take home leftover food from restaurants to compost food and feed livestock. Of the 39 OECD countries, Japan ranks 29 in the term of recycling rate. This is because 1/3 of its garbage is food waste, yet it burns using heavy oil. The top OECD countries for recycling is Germany, and followed by a country you all know. Because it's recycling 95% of its food waste. So I have no need to make recommendation to you, but if I may, I would like to introduce circulation that include human waste. This photo is Oki-town in Kyushu, Japan. There is a methane fermentation tank in the center of the town, circulating not only food waste, but also human excrement. The important thing here is that unlike aerobic fermentation, this does not require a lot of energy. The fermentation produces liquid fertilizer, which contains just the right balance of minerals, so it can be poured directly into rice paddy field or used in vegetable garden. This not only decreases waste, but waste and sewage disposal costs are also reduced. This is possible because this is a small town, but I believe that large cities could also set up a similar system if they do it on a unit-by-unit basis. The second idea is nitrogen-free farming, using microorganisms to fix nitrogen. Toshimichi Yoshida, a well-known farmer in Nagasaki, produces organic vegetables without nitrogen fertilizer. He does this by putting only carbon product in the soil. You can see the wood in the soil. His vegetables contain high level of vitamin C and phytochemicals, and there is no pest damage. They also have no nitrogen, so taste of vegetable is sweet. He says he does not need chemical fertilizer because microorganisms in the soil can fix nitrogen in the air. NHK World broadcast his activities as an example of regenerative agriculture. The program is in English, so you can watch it on the website. This picture was taken last fall. We tried his farming method in a park with poor soil. While we did not add any fertilizer, we are actually able to produce fine bell peppers. This shows how his method is possible, even in urban spaces or narrow spaces. From the point of view of ordinary conventional agricultural knowledge, it seems strange. We can produce without the use of any nitrogen fertilizer. But Mr. Akinori Kimura, the famous Japanese natural farmer, has also done the same thing with apples. Shuichi Sugiyama, emeritus professor and researcher at Hirosaki University, studies Kimura's natural field and stated that microbial nitrogen fixation is possible if there is enough carbon. He also mentioned high-yield fertilizer-free farming is necessary. Chemical fertilizers are made through a chemical reaction under high pressure and high temperature conditions. On the other hand, nitrogen fixation by microorganisms occurs under normal temperature and pressure, so require 4 times as much energy. Instead of using fossil fuels for this energy, dead branches, fallen leaves, and grasses can be used as energy sources. How about phosphorus fertilizer? Even if you apply fertilizer, only 10 to 15 of the phosphorus is used by plants because it is tightly bound with aluminum and other elements in the soil. While in the real world, 97% of minerals are absorbed through microorganisms. Plants release 15% of the sugar made from photosynthesis through the roots. This may seem ridiculous, but it is not waste because it is an investment into the soil in which they live. Microorganisms feed on this sugar carbon, providing minerals to plants in this return. It is truly a symbolic mutual aid relationship. As the figure above shows, only a small portion of the root and the rest is a mycorrhizal fungi network. Dr. David Johnson, University of New Mexico, say that the balance between bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi is more important than fertilizer. This is a video captured of Dr. Johnson's online lecture. He compared 10 different compounds and analyzed the mineral component in them. The blue bar is the yield of green peppers. It shows that there is no relationship between nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and organic matter. What correlates with yield was the balance of bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi. So using bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi were my second solution for alternative fertilizer. And this method has an additional advantage. Chemical fertilizer contaminate groundwater with only 10% of the fertilizer used by crop in the worst cases. By contrast, biological fixed nitrogen is quickly converted to amino acid, which are then absorbed by the crop through fungi. Nature is more economically efficient than us. There are thousands of species of nitrogen-fixing bacteria, but only the rhizobium on soybeans are well known. This is because the technology of genome analysis was not being developed enough until recent times. In modern agriculture field, plowing was destroyed the mycorrhizal fungi network, and the use of the herbicide, particularly Roundup, have killed them. We didn't understand what soil was like naturally. A soil ecologist, Dr. Elaine Ingham, warns against these practices. Science is now showing us why natural mountains continue to produce chestnut when we don't fertilize them. Next, I want to talk about the David Montgomery's new work, Nutrient Value, because what crop eat determines the quality of the crop. By the way, this was my last year slide of my Zazen Master Knowledge Hozo. I explained that he lived healthy only less than 2,000 calories each day. This year, I will explain about this in further detail. Basically, there are two important points. The first is that the body wants vitamins and minerals more than calories. So a diet that is low in calories but high in micronutrition, in other words, organic, is important. Second is that gut is smarter than the brain. For example, when a sweet additive is added, the brain judges it to be delicious, but also says that the tongue sends a message to the gut via the vagus nerve, and the gut evaluates whether poisonous food was eaten by accident. Then the gut produces mucus to prevent the poison from entering the body. As a result, the fuel efficiency of the food is reduced. So what can we do to make our gut healthy. The famous microbiologist from the University of Tokyo, Dr. Tomotari Mitsuoka, say, a good way is to eat vegetable and other fibrous food. It is the same as soil. Mikiko Gouda, Japan's leader, organic farming communities, says humans are walking plants and the soil is the gut. The above graph shows that babies have more bifidobacterium, a good bacteria, and aged people have a greater number of Clostridium, a bad bacteria. However, if gut condition is good, the bad bacteria cannot multiply. In fact, there is a village where people have the same microbial balance as baby or young person, even though they are elderly. This is the slide of bread in Japan in the 1980s. The study shows that people were healthy and lived long because they ate vegetables, whole foods, vitamins, and fiber, and fermented food. The young man below on the right is the young Dr. Mitsuoka. In this age of pandemic, I think that we want to aim to live and die as naturally as possible without being dragged in a hospital. This slide is a message of Thich Nhat Hanh that I introduced last year. He passed away in January this year, so I would like to add it of new scientific research of his unique method. We can understand more deeply the importance of Zen practices. Thich Nhat Hanh advocates mindful eating. According to Harvest Research paper, if you eat mindfully, you only need 1,600 calories instead of 2,400 calories. A group that performed seemingly meaningless rituals such as bread tapping needed only 1,400 calories, 20% less than those who performed mindful eating. And this group member preferred to eat natural carrot rather than chocolate. These studies are just beginning, and they are not considered an issue of agricultural production or food self-sufficiency. But if we eat high-quality food mindfully with gratitude, we will not need to produce as much food, and that means reducing our burden on the environment. I want to teach children these things through school lunches. Pioneers of organic farming in 1930s believed that the quality of food affects health. For example, Sir Albert Howard made compost using a method he learned from traditional farmers in India. When he fed vegetables grown in his compost to children in England, they did not catch cold. But Sir Howard could not explain why. So many people did not understand and thought he believed in a dreamy fantasy. However, Dr. George Muramoto of University of California, Santa Cruz told us that recent research has provided an explanation for why this is so. It is based on the concept of One Health. One Health understands livestock, human, and microorganisms as being as all one. In the United States, this concept has recently been extended to plants. This slide is an example. You can see that not only minerals, but microorganisms are also circulating. Soil with a healthy microbial balance produces healthy crop. When people eat crop with a healthy microbial balance, the balance of gut bacteria also improved. People became healthy, and the compost made from their poo made the soil healthy again. In other words, minerals and microorganisms are circulating. And as a result, the gut also became healthier. This is my recommendation for maximizing food utilization in cities. What will the cities of the 21st century look like in terms of these One Health ideas? This is a photo of the rooftop vegetable garden I showed you last year. A step further than this would be to green the building itself. An Italian architect has started such a project, and he says that having many such a building in a city would allow cities to absorb carbon dioxide rather than emitting it. In Japan, drone-based agriculture is considered high technology, but I believe this is more high-tech and harmony with nature. If you are interested in the concept of my speech today and can read Japanese, please read my new book published this March. It is titled Healthier Soil, Healthier Gut. I also wrote a bit about this conference last year on the book. Dr. Adachi, a professor of Taiwan University in Japan, has been studying mycorrhizal fungi before World War II, and Mr. Yoshinori Kaneko was a student of Dr. Adachi. Therefore, Mr. Kaneko always taught me about the importance of food and mycorrhizal fungi. Mr. Kaneko visited Okitown, and an engineer who was working with Mr. Kaneko produced biogas in Ogawa town gave a lecture there. This led to the start of the methane project. The former mayor of this Okitown told me when I visited him about a memory of Mr. Kaneko. As a pioneer of the organic movement, Mr. Kaneko was alone when he started. But his methods have spread to entire Ogawa town and hopefully the entire country with a new law. I was honored when Mr. Yoshinori Kaneko, my mentor in organic farming since my student days, recommended my old book, Seed and Gut. I was also looking forward to receiving an endorsement from him from my new book, but he sadly passed away suddenly on September 24 while he was checking on his rice by his organic rice party. Mr. Kaneko always said that even if economic profit was small, nothing could compare to the health of a self-sufficient community, as it will bring peace of mind and content heart. And when several years before, Mr. Miguel Alteria visited his farm and seeing the landscape, and Alteri said here, we have already paradise. I would like to end my speech with Mr. Kaneko's word from about half a century ago, when he was still a young farmer. Let's create a rich self-sufficient zone between heaven and earth. I believe that Mr. Kaneko supported us from the paradise of the heaven. Thank you very much.